Good afternoon, Mounties. My name is Tina Schilling, and I'm from the nursing department. And I'm going to use my son Greg here to teach Stop the Bleed. We all know CPR is going to save lives. However, STB can also save lives. When someone is actively bleeding, it can take less than 5 minutes for that patient to bleed out and actually die from their bleeding. So to stop the bleeding, it's 3 easy, quick steps that I'm going to teach you. Step number 1 to stop bleeding. If my patient has a bleeding area on his arm, I'm going to apply direct pressure using 2 hands to apply direct pressure to that extremity to stop bleeding. It should hurt. Does this hurt?
No.
It should hurt. So obviously I'm not pressing hard enough. I want to apply direct pressure to the bleeding area to get that bleeding to stop. If I'm unable to get the bleeding stopped with the direct pressure, I can grab anything I have available, whether it be my favorite Mountie t-shirt that I'm going to now use as a dressing. I'm going to hold that dressing over top of my bleeding area and continue to apply direct pressure. If the bleeding still doesn't stop after I've now put a dressing over that bleeding area, I can grab a tourniquet. If we have special tourniquets available, these are known as cat tourniquets, we can actually place a cat tourniquet 2 to 3 inches above the area that's bleeding, and we're going to tighten the tourniquet. As I tighten the tourniquet, I'm going to now turn the wand that's on the tourniquet to make it even tighter. So as I've tightened the tourniquet and my tourniquet is on my patient should not have a pulse below the level of injury. Does that hurt?
What?
Does it hurt?
No.
It doesn't hurt? Well, then it's not tight enough. So if it doesn't hurt and the patient doesn't complain about it being tight enough, then it's not tight enough, and you need to make sure that your tourniquet is now tight enough. Once the tourniquet is tight enough, we're going to watch that extremity to ensure that the bleeding has stopped. If the bleeding doesn't stop with the first tourniquet that I put on, I can put a second tourniquet above that. But the goal once we put a tourniquet on, we never remove the tourniquet until the patient has received help in an emergency room. If you do not have a cat tourniquet available for you, you can use anything you can find to make a tourniquet. Maybe it would be the patient's belt. Take their belt off. Wrap it around their arm. Make a tourniquet. Use a shirt to make your tourniquet. That's how we stop bleeding in an extremity. Now, what if our bleeding is not in our extremity? And maybe our bleeding might be in our core body or in our groin or in an armpit, and now we have this gaping hole in my patient who is now bleeding. I'm going to take my dressing, whatever I can find, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to stuff that into the hole. And it doesn't matter how I stuff that into the patient's wound, but I'm going to stuff it and get that wound packed as tight as possible. As I'm packing this wound and I get all of the t-shirt into the wound to get it packed, I'm going to continue to hold 2-handed pressure onto that wound to get the bleeding to stop. This is how you can stop the bleed and help anybody who you come across who could be bleeding.